Hi, welcome to episode 2 of the Dreadful Therapy podcast. I'm your host, Robbie Watson. Today, joining me is a new guest, Jack Farmery, a 22-year-old from Yorkshire, who is a sports marketing graduate of Northumbria Uni and a Liverpool FC hooligan, but most of all, a provider of excellent customer service at a restaurant in Leeds, which I experienced today. So, Jack, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast, Robbie. Really happy to be here.
So, how are you? How have you been recently?
Yeah, been really good. Just come off a shift today. It was really busy in Leeds city centre, so really good for business. I'm glad people are out again, and we're getting into an element of normality. It's a shame we're not having people sat down, but that's what it's like at the minute, I guess, mate.
Yeah, well, I suppose you are you're classed as are you classed as an essential worker or a key worker? Do you get that title?
One of those two. I'll take either of them because that makes me feel very important.
Yeah, I suppose so. I feel like I had that at my last job, but I guess obviously we'd love to be in a studio. I said this in the previous episode, but because of the COVID situation, we are on Zoom, like a lot of podcasts nowadays.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to live with that. It's okay. And so I'm just going to start off with a simple, quick thing to get to know you, because I gave you a little bit of an introduction. And I'm just going to ask you, give us a few words to describe yourself to the possible listeners.
To describe myself, I'd say I'm charismatic. So I'm quite funny, friendly, positive, quite bubbly as well. That's well-rounded for me, to be honest.
There's some brilliant and accurate answers. I could say, having known you for a little while, I should explain. I have known Jack since, I imagine the start of secondary school. I don't even know how far back it goes. The origin story, I imagine friends of friends, and maybe possibly sports clubs when we were younger. But I think they're brilliant descriptors. I would definitely go with bubbly. I mean, like I witnessed today, brilliant customer service. And so, yeah. So that's great. That's a nice little description. So, as you know, in this podcast, we look at 4 different areas of life: childhood, school or education, employment, and social life and relationships. So that's a little bit of a mixture. Yeah. And so we're going to start off with just childhood. And so I'm going to act as a bit of I said this to the previous guest, an unqualified therapist, a dreadful one. This is the whole point in the podcast. And so I'm just going to ask you, when you think of childhood, what is that standout memory, that thing that makes you, when someone says the word childhood, what does your mind cast back to?
Well, I like to think of, because we all had our problems, no matter how old we were, but it was just related. So I always, no matter where I am, I always think of the positive moments throughout my entire life. I always pick off the most amazing moments. So for me, childhood for me was getting up at about 3 a.m. To make our way down to Devon in the summer holidays.
Okay.
And we'd still, as a family, I'd still be in my PJs with my brother, and we'd have breakfast at this grotty service station just outside Bristol. Lovely little pan of chocolate to keep us going for the 9-hour journey. And you have the breakfast, and about 3 or 4 hours later, you'd go through these lovely country roads and you get a glimpse of the sea. And for me, that's childhood for me, because I just remember how excited I was, and it was just amazing. Because I was a water baby. That's what I was known as
okay. Me too.
Oh, really?
However, I'm a terrible swimmer. Me and my oldest brother, I believe, are both water babies. However, my older brother, the middle child, he wasn't, and he is by far the best swimmer. However, when you do say the whole childhood, and I think that's such a great memory, I have such similar ones of, I used to go up to a place called Sea Houses near Bamborough in the northeast, and I don't know whether you had this, but the classic, when you're driving on the motorway or like on the back road and you're getting close and you get I can see the sea. First one to claim, I can see the sea. And for some reason, it's just one of those things everyone loves to do. And it's you're off to the sea, but
Oh
you
yeah.
just love to say it, and you can't not as soon as you see it.
Oh, it's just amazing, and some of my happiest memories are by the sea. We used to have this little boat, so we'd go to this little cove in Salcombe, and we were able to jump off the rocks, and it was just amazing. I'd love to go back to Salcombe, but I think it would be very different if I went nowadays compared to as a young child back in the day.
Oh well,
But
brilliant.
it was really special actually, and especially not just in Devon. My grandma and granddad used to own a house in Spain, so we'd have accommodation when we went over to Spain in the summer holidays growing up. So we'd go there every year, and that we used to get used to that town going pretty much every single year, and it became as just an amazing destination for us to go to. And it was just, it's one of those, again, it's to do with the sea, but
no, it is one of those things.
Going out on like a pedalo or something like that.
Yeah,
I've just got a really fond memory of going over a big wave. And my granddad Dave, you'll probably hear a lot more about him in this podcast, when Arso would sit backwards, and you just heard the sort of sound, when you slip in a bath, that sort of.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Something. Exactly.
And he just saw his legs just go overboard, just backwards on the pedalo, which was just. It's just one of some of those memories that stand out for me.
Yeah, no, they are really great. I had a similar situation of where we both sound very nostalgic and also very lucky and slightly but we had 2 caravans in the south of France, and we'd go there. I think we went like 8 times over like 8 years because my dad didn't like flying, so he'd drive down, and it was like a place we could go on holiday that he could manage to get all the way to without having to fly. But yeah, it sounds great. And so I'm going to move on, and I'm going to ask you, so how would you compare your childhood to what you see on TV? And I know on TV there's a mixture, there's the good and the bad, and I want to know, when I say on TV, I suppose the good things, you'd see like American president style videos of the like kids by the lake or whatever. And so I guess that typical thing, or I guess in our country, the only thing I could compare it to is Tracy Beaker, but obviously that wasn't quite the nice childhood that I think people wanted. So I don't know whether it's good or bad. How would you compare your childhood to TV?
For me, in terms of film, I think, because I watched a lot of British TV growing up, I used to watch quite a lot of CBBC. So it was quite a lot of animated stuff, which I couldn't really compare myself to. Yeah. So in terms of like bits and bobs and stuff like that, well, I guess we were driving around a bit, not like bits and bobs, but like, but in terms of the films, I guess, I watched Thunderbirds growing up. And there was a load of kids on that, and that, again, they were on an island. There's a bit of a theme growing here. But I think personally, I think it's quite a void. I think it's always nice for kids to look and see what's going on the TVs, and that probably gives them a representation of what they think childhood's like. Yeah. But I'm a massive advocate for just staying in your own lane and doing what you want to do, and not looking at not looking at the TV for sort of inspiration to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. We always did stuff based. We always did stuff based on word of mouth. So sometimes our grandma and granddad or auntie would go to a place and they'd say, "It's absolutely amazing. You've got to go." So, and the year after, we'd go, "Oh, our auntie recommended that. Let's go there this summer." So I think for me, I don't think I necessarily compared my childhood to TV. It was more of my own experiences in the past, and we'd explore and go off the beaten track, as opposed to compare myself to or my family to a TV program. But still, they were always having a really amazing time on these TV shows. Yeah. And we were always having an amazing time. So I guess there's a link there. Yeah. But it was never like the TV I used to watch. So as you said, Tracy Beaker, I wasn't getting around. Telling people to bug off.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's a good thing. That is a brilliant thing. And I suppose that similarity is good. And so I guess a lot of the time you see in a lot of programs, the coming of age type of stories. And so was there a memory in your childhood that maybe not necessarily exited your childhood or lost your innocence in a way, but was there like a point or a memory where you really felt like you'd got to like the next stage of life, whether that be like realizing Santa's not real, like spoilers there.
Spoilers.
But or anything else like that?
For me, it was also all to do with steps. So the one thing that my dad always reminds me of was on a Thursday in about year 5, where because I live about 5 minutes from my primary school. So on a Thursday, I was trusted to walk home by myself,
Ooh,
which was
big boy
which was
news.
huge. I had to go across a zebra crossing with a lollipop lady there who saw me across safely for 5 years or so.
Oh, gosh.
So that was I'd say that was quite a big deal. My dad was working from home, so he was on quite a lot of conference calls. So he trusted to walk home by myself, which I'd say for me that was definitely the first step. I thought, well, Jack, you've got to pull your socks up here and stop running around trees and get on with your life.
Yeah. Okay, that's a really good one because often people can jump to when I ask like Christian people jump to like ones really late on in their life or things like that. But I think that's a really great one. I mean, I remember definitely battling with my parents of like crossing a road and then like holding your hand and you're like, no, it's time. I'm not going to hold your hand. I think I can make it.
I'm going alone this one.
Exactly. And so there's some great memories there, brilliant memories. And I'm going to ask you, it's not a fun question, but because we have probably best memory there, but what's your worst memory of childhood? Obviously, if there's one you want to keep to yourself, that's absolutely fine. On the podcast, we try to be open, but there's no pressure there.
Probably my granddad Eric passing away when I was in year 6. It was tough to say the least because I was too young particularly to go to the funeral. I didn't really understand it at the time.
Yeah.
Which for me it was quite tough because it was the first time I'd seen my dad upset at any point. And as the male role model, you always look up to him to be a source of information, a source of inspiration, someone to live by.
Especially when you're really young at that age of like, it's very much a thing that you're told, I guess, of that that's the person to look up to. So yeah, no, I bet that is like really tough because I remember having a similar thing with an uncle, you know, the type of uncles that are your uncle, but they're not actually related.
So your dad's best friend.
Yeah, that type of thing. And that happened. And I never went to the funeral or anything like that. And so, because you're just too young. And I imagine that for parents or grandparents to explain, it's probably a bit too much. And so,
it was particularly difficult. But as you say, I was so young, I didn't necessarily know how to deal with such grief. Like, I think to this day, I'm still carrying it because I was so young. He didn't see me grow up into the man I am now, which is such a shame. But he lived a really happy life and he achieved so much stuff. And he was a really nice guy. Like all the stories that my dad's told of him. So we've got to a stage now, instead of grieving, where we're looking back and laughing, the sort of thing. That's quite unique to my family. We always look back, like we grieve and then we look back and we laugh and get inspired by the stories before us, which is it's really sad and really happy.
Yeah, it's admirable. It's a brilliant way to deal with it. I mean, I guess you get it a lot of the time. People cope through humor, and I think that's often I think obviously it's going to sound really weird, but I think you hear a lot of people talking about this of where at funerals and things like that, often people, I guess there's that whole thing of don't know whether to laugh or cry because it's like a really happy thing because it's a big celebration but at the same time not. But yeah, no, well, I suppose had a lovely, you sound like you've had obviously not to put words in your mouth, but brilliant childhood. And so
I genuinely do think, and that's credit to my mum and my dad, because I'm a firm believer that it's your environment around you that creates such an amazing experience at that particular age. And they did one heck of a job. It was just amazing. I've got so many memories from it. Could go on for days, but you've got some questions to ask, I believe.
Well, no, of course. Well, that's part of it. And so I guess you don't really still have time to tell some stories. And so I'm going to move on to education here. And so obviously lovely to hear about your childhood. But would you say that you liked school and education? So this includes preschool, primary school, secondary school, sixth form, college, uni. Did you enjoy it? Were you a fan of it or not?
Preschool, I loved it. I was just sandpit most days. Yeah. I was having a lovely time.
I suppose there's not really
to be honest.
I was about to say, I don't think anyone's ever had, well, I'm not to speak too soon, but I don't think anyone could possibly have a bad experience.
I can't imagine someone going, I had a terrible time. This that bloody teacher.
He just thinks, like thinking of a preschooler stood outside like, oh, it's been a stressful day. Can't believe it.
Man, I'm going to have to chain this.
Oh gosh. But yeah, no, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, preschool, amazing. And then I guess thinking out as an evaluation, I progressively got less interested, I think.
Okay.
So apart from university where I was I was studying in a certain area, but so it was steps again. So do well at SATs, even though we didn't actually take SATs at our school because the year before there was quite a lot of incidents of people crying. There's still to this day they put too much stress on year 6 pupils. It's a bit silly, isn't it?
Yeah, I was about to say after 6 years of learning, I'm sure the teachers could have a grasp of what set to maybe put them in when they send them to the next school. Because I mean, I know for example, usually you've only got like 3 schools that there's a likelihood of going to. So I'm sort of the communication to get you into SETs, because I know I took SETs and then they went, oh no, we're not going to send. I don't think they sent the information because I talked about my SETs in year 7 with other people. So really weird thought. Imagine talking about your SATs results. But
I can't remember how it was even graded. Was it a pass fail? I can't remember.
Not a clue, but I remember talking about them, and I got put in all the bottom sets, and I ended up at the end. I was basically a middle set like person.
The average value.
And then I'd say English, I was probably sneaking into the lower set because wasn't that great at that. I didn't have particularly.
Yeah, I was in middle set for maths, top set for English. I was very sort of artistic, quite creative rather than academical. I've always been that since growing up. But I think, like, as I say, keep going up. Year 10, year 11, I was so focused on doing well in my GCSEs, it was untrue. So that was the first time I could test myself, and I ended up doing quite well and doing what I wanted. And there was a very satisfying moment when I went to pick up my results, where I guess we won't name any names, but one of the leading figures of the teaching staff of Ilkley Grammar School came over. He looks like Count Dracula.
Ah, yeah, no, I can picture him.
He came over to me and offered a place. Have you got that in your head now?
I'll get it out. I flash up a picture on screen. I believe they're on the school Twitter account, as far as I know. I'm just expecting him going, slicking his hair all the way back.
If you can get a really shocked picture of him and some garlic in the other screen.
But carry on.
He offered me a place at the Ilkley Grammar School sixth form. After you had to give your options, I was scheduled to move to another school because they had more applied subjects rather than Ilkley Grammar.
It was quite quite a scary, I think it was 5 Bs that you needed to get into Ilkley. And I guess it was quite a scary thing to try and achieve. I know for myself, I was like, oh my God, am I going to get it? And I was actually really bothered about it because I guess if you were set on our school as where you wanted to go, it kind of really put a lot of pressure on.
Oh yeah,
because it was about keeping your friends basically, or going somewhere else. And obviously you had the whole, like you say, the applied subjects thing, so you had your reason to be leaving. But I remember being so stressed about it, and luckily I did come out way above what I needed, but I wasn't expecting it. I mean, every time I've ever done exams, because I don't try and mocks, I get absolutely shafted by any predicted grades. And
I remember in
the end.
I remember in parents' evening, I think it was geography, and he said you're scheduled to get a D, and he didn't have confidence in me, and everyone has that one story. I remember Mikey telling me about maths, and he was scheduled to get a low grade, and he came
friend of the show, Michael Kingsman.
He's on the list.
Yeah, he is on the list. It's a reference to a great podcast. That I'm glad we both enjoy
it. Link in the description.
Yeah.
So he was like, he didn't really have that much confidence in me. I think it didn't help the fact that I was quite bubbly, quite energetic. I was keen to learn, but I did probably disrupt a lot, i.e. talking and stuff. But ended up getting a high B, ended up getting an A in human geography and a B in physical. So I got a high B, which I was just like, and what? And what, Bane on? Say something now.
I know. Well, I was very much that. I think it's like proving yourself to the teachers when a lot of them had like undershoot you. And I know it was never a personal thing. I mean, they were dealing with like thousands of kids, so they probably never had a second thought about it. But
you probably just couldn't give two about me.
Well, exactly. And especially like, I mean, I can't imagine what it was like to be a citizenship teacher. I mean, obviously they do great work and teachers are great given the time, but I cannot imagine being a citizenship teacher.
I think it's a losing battle when you're trying to teach year 11s about condoms, really.
Yeah, and it was a real weird mixture of that and like religion and society. It was an odd one, and the test at the end of it, I forgot what it was for, but that was hilarious. I remember seeing a picture of a kitchen, and it was spot the hazards, and we had quite a few.
Surely that's just to test your common sense?
Well, exactly. But we did have, again, friend of the show, Michael Kingsman, did have a bit of an that test, and he said
it was a hazard.
It was a hazard, but it was very unlikely. But it just involved a strong gust of wind, a door, and a baby, and maybe some glass. I don't know, but it was very unlikely. It
was the definition of the domino effect.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. It was very cause and effect at its best. But to move on, obviously, we're in a similar friends group. I know I'm in quite a couple of them. But when you look at school or like American TV or just the media, you often get the popular group, the nerdy group, the group in like the middle, sporty, like all of that. What group would you have put yourself in just in general, or what group were you in?
Well, we had our core group, which was all the friends that I've been with for a decade or so. Still really good mates with them now. But because I did quite a lot of sport growing up, so I did cricket, football, and I played rugby for school. I was always sort of not in loads of friendship groups, but I was sort of intertwined. So I never sort of felt out of place. I was never like frowned upon, saying like, "Oh, who is he and why is he here?" Like I could pretty much speak to a lot of people in our year group. So I had my fingers in a lot of pies, as it were.
Let's keep that away from school as a topic. We'll have that in the university section. But anyway, so I think that's similar to me. I was very much. My lecturers will watch this. I was very much in and around lots of groups like you. So like as in that I could dip into them, and I remember being part of like I guess what was seen as a the more mainstream group in year 7. I just remember one time I went into the local town with these people, and it was the weirdest thing ever because I felt like I was like, why on earth am I here? This is really weird because I came from a school of like 60 farmers that taught dry stone walling, as a class to Ilkley with like 1,500 upwards of that. But yeah, no, it seems like it's similar in that, and I think a lot of people are like that. But you do get the odd person who is just like a best friend throughout the whole thing, and it's just interesting to know and compare. And so, what would be your best and worst memory of school? Whether the worst memory be just an embarrassing one, but your best memory.
Well, my best memory is also my worst memory. Because it got me in a fair bit of trouble. Because,
okay, well, we'll go with this one then.
Okay, so it was a food tech class, and we were making brownies, and I was sat next to Jack Paul, definitely a friend of the podcast.
He would be if he was on, he'd be a friend of the podcast as well.
And we were making brownies, and I made this. So it was actually going quite well. I so how hard? That's not a euphemism.
That might have to be cut from the. I think I'm definitely gonna have to beep that out. So anyway, we'll carry on to get away from that, so I can clip it out.
So I went to. So time went off on the oven, and I went to take the brownie out of the oven. Stupidly, I was young and naive. I didn't go with the oven gloves. So Mrs. Druitt,
was very naive.
I was very foolish. So I went to take it out. Instantly dropped it. My pain receptors were going off like it was something else. Dropped it. It wasn't even cooked, so the hot chocolate just went all over my section on the floor. And the food tech teacher was standing right there, and this was even worse. She scooped it up with her bare hands.
Oh God!
Just looked at me, and she was just looking at me, and her left pupil just started flickering.
Was this which teacher was this?
Can I mention names?
You can.
It was Mrs. Druitt.
Mrs. Druitt. Oh, I was hoping it's. So I was a fan of the food tech department in general because I took it at GCSE. Yes, very weird. I was like 4 other guys did it out of 30. Great GCSE. I'm no word of a lie. I am 100% sure one of the questions on the exam was a multiple choice question and with like a picture of a colander or like a sieve or something, and you had to say it was. And people joke about that, but it genuinely was a thing. But no, I always found it really, really funny how we had.
And I can't believe her name was Miss Bland.
Unbelievable. But carry on.
So she scoops her hands up. Her left pupil starts flickering. Seemed rather emotionless until about a couple of seconds later, where she just goes, "My hands are burning, Jack," to me. And I'm just startled. I don't know what to do. So I was like, "Oh, do you want me to get you like a towel, some hot water, some cold, wet, some wet roll or something?" Because that cured every single injury.
It did.
And she just said it, and I said that, and then she just went, "My hands are burning," probably shouting in my face. And Jack Paul started laughing. He just did this, and then she turned to him and said, "You're not doing food next week." And then I was just like, "Am I doing food next week?" He was just like, "No, you're not doing food next week. You're in detention tomorrow at lunchtime."
Oh gosh.
So did detention. That was fine. Next, the week after, for some reason, she'd completely forgotten about it, and she asked, "Jack, where are your ingredients?" I was like, "Oh, you told me that I wasn't doing food tech this week because I burnt your hands last week."
Yeah.
She was like, "No, I wasn't I was joking." It was just like, "I'm gonna have to give you another detention." I was like, "What? You can't give me a detention for having a detention for not bringing my food ingredients because that's what you told me."
Yeah, for not understanding her sarcasm. Obviously, she's just on another level of humour. No, I did love the food tech department. I thought it was a really good memory, to be fair. I remember hearing a story, actually. I've forgotten who exactly it was, but we had these blue trays. They were a big part of the class, and you had to put all your ingredients on the blue tray at the start of the thing. And I don't know. I wasn't in the class. I've just heard the story.
Was it James Oxtoby?
It could have been. And he put it in the oven and a plastic tray, and it just melted in the oven, which is just a classic
The door opened and blue smoke came out of
Yeah.
it. He was like he was on an away day.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll hear about a few of those maybe in the, I don't know, maybe in the social life and relationships area of the podcast. But I'll move on to a penultimate question of the education section. So do you think uni lived up to the hype? Obviously, there's the best time of your life, and do you think it was worth it? Money, that is.
Almost certainly. I think in terms of financially, no. I'm under the impression that I think university should be free. Then that's my personal opinion. Can argue for and against it, but I think education is a right, not a privilege.
Yeah, I could only agree. I mean, and I know. I think you'd be silly not to. Obviously, there's implications to it, but I think they're worth buying the bullet for.
Yeah, 100%. But in terms of academically, always felt like I had the right support at university, and you got all of the all the tools needed. So I had access to a lot of the buildings, a lot of the libraries, state-of-the-art units at Northumbria, and my social life around it, made so many new friends, got to experience a brand new city in Newcastle, have the opportunity of living away from home for three years and having that sort of just that experience was just incredible.
Yeah.
On internship, just a lot of experiences that I've built from uni, even though all you can come out of it is a laminated piece of card.
Yeah.
You've got second class degree on it. It was just absolutely amazing, and it absolutely flew by. It was unbelievable how quickly it goes. But I keep getting updates actually on my uni group of 3 years ago, and it's what we looked like when we were young and in freshers, and it just looked like the best time ever. Yeah. I would if I could go back and do freshers all over again. I so would.
Yeah,
it was just.
I guess. Well, I'll let you finish that, and then that links us nicely to the last question of the education section.
No, well, that was pretty much what I had to say.
Well, sorry for the awkward interruption, Dan, but I'm just gonna plow straight through that. And so, finally, if you could go back, what would you change?
I'll tell you what, you can tell you've sorted these questions. It's a cracking question, that, Rob.
Well, I always think to myself, like, oh God, if I could go back and change this. I mean, I still am, but I was a proper short king back in the day in school, and I wish I could go back and be a bit more like I am now. And so that's my thing. Or maybe even just go back and tell myself, like, you're doing great. That's just what you're doing. And so something like that. And so what is it for you? Like, whether it be something silly and ridiculous or
perhaps bigger than that? I think throughout my education, not even at uni, take more risks, because I'm the older brother of my family. I always test things and then say to my brother, do this, do that.
Yeah.
So I'm always the one going, right, okay, I'm scoping it out. I've got no sort of previous experience of anyone close to me doing what I'm doing. Yeah. So I always scope it out. I feel like I'm always the one who scopes it out, and I always play it safe. Always play it safe.
So that's an interesting one, because I'm the youngest child of 3, and I'm obviously the one who's doing. Luckily, anything I do, everyone's already done it, and so both my brothers have come home, been sick from drinking, come home, shouldn't have drank, something like that, and so when I come home and like. One night, I remember I'd hear them getting like bollocked for it, and like. But one night I came home, I obviously drank too much. I don't even know when I was getting spiked, and I think my mum was sat by my bed, and I was like frothing at the mouth, and she had to sit by me because she thought I was going to throw up in my sleep, which is obviously horrific. There was like rice everywhere, because I thought, you know what, good idea, I'll half cook rice.
I thought for some reason in my head, what you do when you put an iPhone, you drop an iPhone in the water.
Well, no, similar thing of, I thought I'll half cook the rice, eat it for my tea, and then when I go out, it'll absorb it, and it won't be but it didn't work, and it ended up on the floor. So yeah.
So I was always the one to try stuff for the first time. And mum and dad, so like in year 10, I'd have a curfew for coming home. And when it came to my brother doing the same thing, I'd probably be more persuasive to my parents to let them be more flexible and say, "I'll let him stay out later because I was held this time," and it was a bit annoying going home slightly earlier.
Yeah.
So I would have probably taken a lot more risks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good one. I think most people could get behind that, but I'm sure there's a couple of people who would probably ask to play a bit more safe. But moving on, conscious of time, I think we're around 25, 30 minutes in. Employment section. Give us a list, your CV of jobs you've had so far, big or small.
15, I was a kitchen porter or pot washer or head of aquatics, depending on what
Head of aquatics. That's a new one.
That's what I called myself when I was on my first job. The chefs found it very, very funny. So yeah, kitchen porter, 15 till 18. Well, no, kitchen porter 15 till 17. Then I was on Friars as a sort of chef and a pastry chef on desserts.
So is this? Am I right in saying is this a local pub?
Yeah, it's just at the pub in my local village. It was amazing because it gave me my first opportunity as a proper job.
Yeah.
And as soon as I was able to get myself a national insurance, CV was right in that pub.
Yeah.
And so I started in January. I had my trial shift in November, but they didn't want to employ me over Christmas because they had set staff and they wanted to make sure they didn't want to take on a new staff member on such a busy period. So they thought in January, where everyone's skint, let's take him on, and so he can show the ropes. Got on well. Did a couple of years there. Then as soon as I turned 18, moved on to a bar and out front, more waiting on work. So more of a customer-facing role, where I sort of developed a persona to be like really friendly to customers and quite confident, quite cheeky. Knew my way around a bar, which is essentially what I wanted because I was just thinking at that time, in future life, I want to be able to work on a bar because it opens so many doors to be able to do the stuff that I want to do.
Yeah, and that because I know some of you personally knowing you want to go traveling, and I suppose that type of experience pulls you away from having to pick strawberries or whatever you do, and it kind of
mining.
Something that's a lot more fun. So yeah, no, definitely.
But yeah, so when I was 18, I left home, went to Newcastle, spent the first year of my uni unemployed because I thought, that's actually where I commend myself because I didn't take risks. I was like, just live your life and do stuff to the full.
Yeah.
So I spent my student loan on a trip to Kiev for the Champions League final in May 1, which was, despite the result, amazing. That was quite a big leap to adulthood because it was just me and my brother going.
So I imagine it was a very scary thing. I remember seeing it at the time and thinking, you know what, it's a brave leap, especially because it's, I guess, I suppose it's not like a mainstream, like obviously every city is mainstream, but it's not a mainstream city that people in our country necessarily go to. Because if you're going to Paris or you're going to Barcelona or something, obviously that's scary, but there's a lot of English speaking there, and so you can probably go up to anyone and ask for anything in English.
It was unbelievable. So everything's different. The language is I want to make sure this is politically correct. Ukrainian, not Russian. There's a little bit of a debacle going on.
I believe so.
So they spoke Ukrainian, and we made sure actually on the banner, we made a banner saying Paisley in Paris, Klopp in Kiev. We spelt Kiev the Ukrainian way, not the Russian way, to make sure that we got on friendly with the security at the ground.
I can't think of anything else but chicken Kievs when you say Kiev, I have to say. Every time I was picturing just a big sign that says maybe parsley in Kiev, as in, and then a picture of instead of Paisley.
We had chicken Kievs off Shevchenko Park, which is the coolest name for a park.
I think that is very cool. And if any listeners don't know, it's the name of just some Ukrainian footballer. It was quite good. But yeah, and then so after that, I know you.
So in second year of university, I worked for Newcastle United Football Club at St James's Park. So I was working as an executive barman. In the hospitality suite. So I worked in the Milburn suite and the Magpie suite at St James's Park. So I was responsible for looking after away club personnel and also Premier League club personnel, as well as Premier League sponsors on every other Saturday, basically.
Yeah.
And then, which was high end. It was everything that I'd wanted. It wasn't the best pay, but it was more than that, because they had a whip. So if in terms of the pay, it wasn't the best, but there was a whip round every day, and you had about 6 tables of people who were well off, let's say, and they would also pay gratitude to the bar staff by giving a tenner or so each, and it accumulated where I'd make the same amount in tips as I would as a salary on the day, which was just as a 19-year-old, just insane, really insane. So I did that, and then I had to quit that as soon as January came around, because my internship started back home. So I moved home for that period, and I was working for a company called SGH Sporting Events, located at Cookridge Hall, which is a lovely golf course in West Yorkshire.
Yeah.
So I was organising tailor-made packages to the US Masters in Augusta, organising corporate clients, their hotels, if they want to play golf out in the States during their stay, their tickets to the Masters, they're hiring cars, so quite excessive amounts of stuff. As a 19-year-old, it was quite overwhelming, but it was
a lot of responsibility, and I guess a lot of I feel like I had a similar thing with my job, of where when you find yourself not working in a manual labour job, you're very much like, what am I doing here? I'm only this age. This isn't meant to be me yet. I've obviously done something right or wrong. I don't know.
There was just a moment where, because we were also organising a charity celebrity golf day, where we had the US major winner John Daly. He was one hell of a golf character, and Paul Scholes, and quite a lot of the Man United staff who were also playing. And Robbie Fowler was on FaceTime to my boss at the time. And I was just like, God, I'm a Liverpool fan, and God is on FaceTime. How do I react to this? This is unbelievable. What have I done?
No, that's super weird.
And it's someone I've completely, a working class hero is something to be, Robbie, and Robbie Fowler is that.
Great name, I must say.
Oh, I know. If I wasn't called Jack, this is another fun fact. If I wasn't called Jack, I would have been called Robbie after.
Really? I didn't know that. You've stolen my name.
I wonder if me and you were both called Robbie,
who would actually get called Robbie and who would get called else? I don't know. I wouldn't mind, to be honest. I've had worse names in the past, so I could go with Rob or Robbie.
I think, in all fairness, our friendship group's got another words what they could call us. To be fair,
exactly. And so I guess to move on again, conscious of time. I was going to say, you were the most embarrassing. Oh wait, in fact, I didn't let you finish. You do have one final job, don't you? You have that I visited today.
Yeah. So as soon as I've graduated, it's a shame, really, because given the circumstances, I would have been able to get an internship through SGH, but it's a travel tour, it's a sports tourism, and it's just not an industry that's active at the minute during a pandemic.
Not really viable.
So I went straight. So I knew this is all about the connection. So I knew a head chef, and he just got a job in Leeds at a new up and coming restaurant. Yeah. So I gave him a call, and I was just like, I've just graduated. I'm looking for full-time work. He said, get yourself down. So I was straight in, and it was brilliant because it's still up and coming. And I feel like I'm still working in the foundations of a business that's got so much potential. Yeah. So it's so up and coming. So all my other jobs have been already found out what the best way of doing stuff is. And for my job, it's still evolving. It's still finding the best way of doing things. And I'm sort of involved in the decision-making process as a more experienced staff member, let's say, of the team that we've got. And I'm loving every minute of it. Yeah. It's absolutely incredible. Despite
it's a lovely place to go.
Yeah.
A lovely new, as a plug for you, the Yorkshire Deli in is it Victoria?
Victoria Gates, yeah. We've also got a brand new store opening up in Victoria Quarter, where we'll have another stand over the Christmas period that's opening on Monday.
Might have to go.
Which hopefully I'll see you guys down there. But it's truly incredible. It all freshly locally sourced from Yorkshire, supporting your independence rather than your chains. And your money's going to the right people. It's building a business. It's building ethically. It's just an incredible place to work at the minute, Robbie. And it's loving every minute.
I love to hear that. Obviously, a lot of the time you get some employment horror stories. And so finally, I'm going to ask you just, and we'll try and get this done. Like, we'll try and make it brief, and so we can have a full social life section. But I'm going to ask you, what is your most embarrassing memory of employment? Something awful. Just something like, or just that makes you just want to crawl in a hole, I guess.
So, the toffee sauce saga.
Oh, the toffee! I don't know whether I've heard this.
My word!
On. So, go.
If you ever worked in hospitality in Ben Ridding, you would know of this story. It's that sort of cult hero, sort of, not even hero, just hilarious. So, I was 19. And I was working as a pastry chef, working on desserts at the Wheatley Arms. Mm-hmm. And the way we served, so it was sticky toffee pudding that we were making. And the way we store the toffee sauce and the vanilla ice cream, they're served in the same black ice cream tubs. The big, is it so many liters of liquid? There was no labels on either of them. Mm-hmm. So I just prepared a lovely sticky toffee. I was putting stuff back together, and with an ice cream tub, you can carry it one-handed and go like that, and just it's
obviously solid. It's the worst that can happen is it hits the floor and it sits there.
Exactly. So I go to pick up this tub, and they quite similar toffee sauce and an ice cream, vanilla ice cream. So I go to pick it up, get the toffee sauce with one hand. The toffee sauce goes in all over the floor. Oh. It acts as a lubricant. Rough. So I slip over, go like
comedy slapstick style.
Yeah. Go like that. Grab a fire extinguisher. The fire extinguisher falls and hits me on the knee. So all the chefs come running over. I am covered head to toe in toffee sauce. They all think it's like it's really hot. So they're all really concerned that the toffee sauce was like burning. And as soon as they realised it was cold, the whole place was laughing. I'm sure some customers were laughing. I had to do a walk of shame through the restaurant.
Covered in sauce.
Looking like the toffee sauce man. So
luckily no one covered you in, like, that's like a moment of like where someone could cover you in feathers and you'd and they'd all stick to you like a proper prank. That's amazing.
So just a measure of how cool this is. Even the chef who I know, who I work with currently, he was making sticky toffee the other day, and without a hesitation, I didn't even remind him. He just went, "Oh, Jack, stay away from the toffee sauce."
I imagine that's quite maybe a year or two later. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It was just, it's cool, and it's one of the funniest. I see the funny side now, but it was absolutely. It was horrifying at the time. Okay. It was about a year later, and it was an Under Armour grey top, and I was playing tennis, and I sweat, and you could still smell toffee.
Oh no! It soaked in. You became Mr. Toffee Man.
So it's like Macbeth, when he's trying to scrub the blood off his hands, and he just won't get.
Won't get apart from
like me with toffee sauce.
I wasn't expecting you to link sticky toffee pudding to Shakespeare's work, but there we go. And so that is exactly the sort of story we're looking for. And so to move on to the social life / relationships meaning anything from partners to just mates. And so we're going to talk about a little bit of, I guess, seriousness in terms of, and we did a similar vein with Mike around mental health as well, and just a bit of a dip into that because obviously it's really important. And on the Dreadful Therapy podcast, we are looking to address these issues depending on the guest, and obviously we wouldn't wish to talk about anything we might not have experienced personally. And so and I mentioned in that podcast stats like the fact men account for 3/4 of suicide deaths registered and this was in 2019, and so it was 4,303. Like I said last time, out of 5,691, which is like a horrific number, and obviously putting it into numbers is a horrific way to look at it. So I guess with the whole lockdown situation, as we are, obviously everything's changed. And I mean, we're doing a podcast on Zoom, which is weird enough. And when I planned this podcast last year, I didn't expect it to be on Zoom. And even months ago, I didn't. And so, firstly, what have you learned about yourself during the lockdown in terms of socializing and things like that? I know I'm very dependent on it. And so, do you what has it taught you, I guess?
It's taught me. I'm same as you. It really has taught me that I'm very dependent on my friends as a route to happiness. Really, my family are amazing, and I was very lucky to have a really nice lockdown. I think the weather and the environment helped, but having
lovely weather.
My mum, my dad, and my brother, and we're so tight knit because we're all so similar. It really helps, but. There was you'll know, during lockdown, we were doing our Zoom calls every Saturday. And that was genuinely, I think I must have said it at the time, it was the highlight of my week. And I do see I could not make any more mates for the rest of my life. And I'd be happy with the ones I've got now. That probably just shows you like as a level of importance my mates are to me at the minute, because
definitely.
I mean, times are tough, and we all know, I think, with us, because I truly think that our friendship group is very, very unique, because a lot of friendship groups have sort of discontinued after school or drifted after school. We've been through a university system, sixth form system, and a secondary.
It did split up. Definitely.
And we still are as close as we ever have been. If anything, we've got even closer.
Yeah, I was about to say some of the people. I mean, I know I've lived with some of them, and I know some are living with them now. And even when people went to uni, some of them live with each other. I know maybe second, third year you lived with part of the group, and so I think I'm exactly the same. I think we often take for granted as well how much support we get, I guess, from the group, or not necessarily support, but the option. I feel like we're all very open, and so I guess along that same tangent of do you feel like you get enough support from the people around you? Because I think it's really important that people feel that.
Don't necessarily show it, but I know I can always come to any of the boys. It's a sort of, I think for us, I think it's a very much an unwritten rule that every single one of us could speak to any other person about any issues whatsoever. Mm-hmm. We've had quite poignant moments in our friendship group when an individual has came out as bi, that sort of thing, and the way that our friendship group still was just like we're still really supportive of you on that respect, and it was quite emotional in a way because it was just like we're so lucky. Some people out there, some bigots out there, could just completely cast people out for having these sort of things, and it was. But
I guess I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I guess there's that. I guess our reaction to it, and obviously can't speak for the person, but I think that type of thing. You're right. Our group, and obviously it's not the same for many, of how we, I guess, kind of just almost acted. We're just like, oh, okay, nice, but we also kind of like celebrated it in a way, I guess. And so things like that, I think, you're definitely right in that. I think it's good. And I'd say that although often we might not go to each other or very often for that type of thing, I feel like definitely we are able to touch base with people, and it is always an option. Even to the whole group. I know people in the past have kind of said things just to a whole group chat, which I imagine is a very brave thing to do instead of just one single person. So definitely.
Yeah.
And so, go on.
Sorry, that's the thing. Like, even so, if someone has the strength to put a really deep message out to a big group chat, the amount of messages they'll get back of pleading support to said person will just help them so much. And it's just the amount of messages that I'll get through. And in the past, it's happened in ours, where messages of support, messages of defiance, saying we're all with you. It's just like, even from a bystander's point of view, it's just so special. It's really, really nice.
Yeah. And so,
put your heartstrings here, Rob.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's the point of the podcast to obviously get the fun, you covering yourself in toffee sauce, but it's what we want to, I guess, if anyone listens, to have that feeling of like, it probably is okay to just reach out. And so I guess, like you say, I feel like we're very lucky in our group particularly, and I could say the same about other groups, I mean, as well. But do you think in general, and I asked the same thing to Michael in the first episode of the podcast, do you think as a man you get less chance of doing that, or do you think it's a generational thing of that was the case maybe even just 10 years ago or 5 years ago, like before us, that is, of where people couldn't really reach out as much? Or because I really feel now there's been quite a bit of progress, but would you say that you feel like you get less support as a man, or do you feel like you get enough? Because obviously there is that history, I guess, of men bottling things up, that type of thing.
I think historically, you're right in terms of the fact that I think just because it's become more of a mainstream and there's a lot more emphasis on the issue and there's a lot more people highlighting the issue of it, and mainstream people, particularly celebrities, I guess, a lot of people look up to, as well as your mates, as well as the promotion that happens. So every day when I'm going to work, there's always a Samaritan's poster or something along those lines. And it's the repeating the message, you're not alone. You're never, ever alone. Always check in with your mates. I know Instagram's a very, very good place in terms of social media in general. There's a lot of emphasis on it. There's a lot of national awareness days of this stuff, and people are doing like the bare minimum of putting something on their story or going out to speak to their friends and talk openly about their feelings. I think it has become a thing nowadays, rather than in before, because I think generationally, that's it. It's become more acceptable nowadays. I think the phrase toxic masculinity springs to mind.
No, I think definitely I'd say come away from that, but obviously it's still a problem, and obviously in some certain groups, and I guess as a general message of just to reach out to those people, to the people around you, whether it be friends, family, whoever. And I think that is incredibly important. And so just finally, on a lighter note, on the last part of this segment, I believe the actual last question, how would you describe your social life in all parts in 3 words, or less, whichever you feel, or more?
Constant, I'd say.
Okay, yeah, no, like consistency type of thing.
Yeah, there's never a moment where there's a blip, I'd say.
Oh, well, very lucky. That's great.
Yeah, because I've got work colleagues who I see as friends as well as my mates. So constantly I'm talking to someone at work, whether that be a friend, colleague, whatever. I'm always talking to someone. It's who I am, really. It's how I break that wall. Unique. Again, I've spoke about that. I think our friendship group is truly unique in a number of ways. A lot of strange characters would make it.
Very definitely. Very, including ourselves. I feel like we shouldn't rule ourselves out of that one.
Oh no, I think I'm a strange character, almost certainly. And you know what? I'll take more risks. Superior.
Wow!
I don't challenge anyone close to me to say no. Our friendship group is much better than
okay. Well, so we'll see how that goes tonight, because I know we have a 6-a-side game tonight.
Oh, huge game, Abby. I'm expecting a hat trick from you.
It's definitely not going to happen. So I suppose we'll see whether we can come out on top over other friends groups, 6-side teams. I don't know about that. And so brilliant. That's I find answering that type of questions. I find them good questions because you find out a lot. But those like in 3 words questions or whatever. They're often so difficult to answer. And if somebody asked me, I'd freeze. And so I guess that's it for the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, Jack. It's been brilliant having you on.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, it's been great. And obviously, we'll have to end the podcast because we do have football very soon and a late kickoff. And
I've got a shepherd pie in the oven.
Yeah, oh well, I do have it. You'll have well, you're in goal. You won't necessarily have a stitch. Luckily, I had my food earlier. But so thanks again. Absolutely amazing to have you on.
Oh, it was absolutely fine. Anytime, Robbie. It was an absolute pleasure and a privilege.
Okay, brilliant. And so, if you want to find the podcast anywhere, it'll be on any major podcasting platform: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and there will also be a YouTube channel that you can find the first and second episode and the third and fourth ones when they come out. And you will also see highlights on any major social media, so Instagram and maybe even a TikTok. And so thanks again and goodbye.
Thank you very much. See you later.